Welcome to Geek Rant. Hey everyone, welcome to Geek Rant. It's Greg here again on the channel with Toby, and today we're going to be talking about the new film Alien Romulus. We've both been to see it yesterday on the day of opening, which is unusual for both of us to see it on the same opening day, isn't it?
It is, yeah, yeah.
But
Getting
nice.
to the cinema, it's getting the time.
This is a new Alien film. Just a word before we start. This is going to be a spoilers review.
Yeah.
We very much want to talk about some of the things that happen in this film, and so if you haven't seen the film and you don't want to be ruined, then obviously turn off now. But otherwise, stick with us. This is a film that's been directed by Febe Alvarez.
Yeah, Alvarez.
Get the name right. He's recently done a couple of other things, hasn't he? Evil Dead and Don't Breathe. More horror-y type
Very
films.
much so. Oh yeah, they're very horror-y.
And I think that was a good choice. I think he did a pretty good job of it overall.
Well, Ridley Scott is one of the executive producers, so his take on it is more horror than action.
That's true.
It's interesting that he kind of picked that director, gave him the go-ahead when he knew his back catalogue. So
yes, yeah, and I could definitely feel that they were trying to get it back into a horror sort of category. Yes, it's science fiction, but it's very much a sort of horror. There was a lot of sort of points where we were jumping and trying to startle you, and suspense and so on.
Failed every single time.
Well, that's interesting. Because I enjoyed good parts of this film.
You could do suspense, okay? I think suspense was all right.
Yeah, and I think if they hadn't, there was a certain few elements within it that I think let it down, and my general concern about nostalgia and rehashing things from the past, which you don't need to do. And there was a certain few bits in it that I was really that disappointed me. I mean, I think
you lined yourself up for that one, though, didn't you? I think you were kind of.
I'm always thinking
expecting that. I really like those bits. For me, that wasn't the problem with the film.
Right.
Those little bits weren't the problem. I think they could have been in there, and it still could have been a really damn good film.
Yes, and because it's set in a time period about 20 or 30 years after Alien. I think it was about 30 or 40 years before the Aliens. I think they had captured the sort of visual essence of the world.
Yeah,
I thought there was some good world building. I liked the where they were on this Jackson Star, at the beginning. The very rough sort of attitude of it.
I thought that just on that.
Yeah,
I just thought that was largely pointless.
Did you?
I thought a lot of that stuff. Yeah. I felt like, wow, this looks absolutely fantastic. I thought that what a great basis. They could do something with this. No story happens on the mining world. Well, nothing interesting happens there.
That's interesting. Well, I think it was more a setup for them to.
Yeah, but it went on for ages. I thought that
I thought that was quite quick.
I just felt like that she was going through the shit. They did lots of traveling and walking around in the town and in the kind of the area, and then we saw her going up, getting into the vehicle, doing all that, and I thought,
right,
there could have been something down there. It's like when you see the base in Aliens, and Burke sends them to check out the spaceship.
Yeah,
you get that. There's a sense of impending doom to that colony,
right?
And with the mining colony in Romulus, there's absolutely no connection to the story. None of them die. None of those people play any role in it. I just felt that I talk about this often, settings, places need to be characters. And I felt that was a character that wasn't utilised.
No, I think you're being too harsh there. I think you're being too harsh. I didn't think it was... when I think back, because I've obviously only seen this once, I think with a lot of these films these days, they can pack a lot into it visually. I would love to. I'd like to go and see it again to pick up those points. But for me, I thought that was very much a setup of trying to paint Wayland Yutani as a terrible company. There was definitely a lot more that they were trying to. So her going to try and sort of talk about her quota. She'd done. So the storyline was, she's going in to try and get passage to another colony or another system where there's proper sunlight. She wants to be in a nicer environment. She's worked all these hours, and then the company have changed their stance on the quotas, and they've suddenly just doubled a quota. So she'd need to be there for another 5 or 6 years.
The most unoriginal storyline you could possibly imagine.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I mean, I don't. It's not an amazing storyline. It's not, but I think the thing is,
she could have had someone there. Could have
alien.
Been...
I mean, they wake up and they're being sent down to investigate a pod. There's no real massive storyline.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
But they couldn't do that again.
They had nothing. They had nothing there in the story. So in that first sequence, what they could have done is she could have had a run-in with someone on the ground who she then ends up in space, and then you would have established a connection between her and that history.
That's
so
that's a good point. Yes,
that's what I'm saying. They don't use it. The lady who gives her the extra hours, I thought that was lovely. I thought, this is great, running about this, and suddenly nothing comes of it. I felt so detached.
Well, I mean,
how she responded to it as well as an actress. I just didn't think she didn't look like she was that upset. She just always had this sort of pathetic look on her face, like, oh God, don't pick on Andy. That whole all the way bloody through, she was right whingy.
But did you not think it was setting up? She left Andy outside. He got picked on. I think obviously, people haven't seen it. Andy is a artificial life form who was a former.
They make that clear straight away.
Yeah, really. Which is fine.
Not a spoiler, that
which is good. It's not a spoiler. It's good because he's damaged, isn't he? He's an older robot.
They have no connection with the history for this either. They could have had a sequence where you see him damaged, you see the father working on him, you see them in the mines, you see the distress, you see her father dying. It
would have been like 3 hours long,
It just would have been that second. It would have been just a flashback, her working, him working on.
The terrible little flashbacks like that. No,
there's no connection. Andy is a disembodied mannequin who's, to be honest, you have no connection to. You don't feel like there's no humorous moment where the android holds down someone's hand and does the knife. An equivalent, not the same thing. There's nothing that connects you in a kind of emotional sense to Andy.
Him telling his crappy jokes, that was supposed to be something that was, and later on it becomes a factor that makes her suddenly think. She says, "Tell me a joke," and he tells her this one about gravity, and that gives her this idea, doesn't it, for later on? So I mean,
I thought that was absolutely terrible. Dad jokes coming from an android. I thought it was just stupid.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. I am really surprised by your reaction to this because we've reviewed some other stuff recently which I thought was total pompous, and you've been like, yeah, this is quite good.
I'm serious. I'm serious. I was really disappointed with the story elements to it. I felt that the unoriginal things weren't the repetitions of the old jokes. Of the old lines. The unoriginal things were the really dreary, boring storylines that they came up with that laced through this film and made it very plain. The only thing that really raised it up was the quality of the cinematography. I thought the directing was terrible. I thought that the director clearly did not know how to handle the actors. I thought that they were they were disembodied. Only Tyler Archie Reno, I thought he was the only one that really I thought was at any good quality. I thought that the actors themselves were all very young and kind of very sort of almost teeny boppy in a way. The way they approached the cast.
Right.
There wasn't an older member of cast in there really, and and Andy was very much cast as a child.
Yes.
You know?
Well, I think
and I just thought
he
it
had
was
become that because he was a malfunctioning android, wasn't he? He wasn't fully.
So just a malfunctioning android make them act like children?
I don't think he acted like a child.
Of course he did. He was kind of walking around, "Mummy, look after me, Mummy," that sort of thing.
No, he wasn't. No, I didn't.
He was.
That's really interesting because I quite enjoyed the character, and I liked it that they then changed. You know, they gave him this disc, and that helped to upgrade his AI and change his character. And I thought that was quite a good original idea for this series.
It knocked him out of that terrible android acting.
But that I don't think he was. I think
if you look back at really Bishop in Aliens, say, for example.
Yeah.
He was the most human person
No,
there.
he wasn't. Not at all. I couldn't agree less.
He was so compassionate.
He was
compassionate.
He was overly compassionate. He was too.
He was in that respect the kindest, most human.
He was the kindest android, but I wouldn't say he's the most human.
I felt that his role.
I thought Ash was the most human at the beginning. You know, he seemed like and he was just like a person. You know, they didn't even know he was a bloody android, did they?
Yeah, and that's the point.
You know?
That's the point. That's what I'm trying to say, Greg.
Yeah, but we know that Andy's an android, and he's a malfunctioning android. I don't want you to try this.
The malfunctioning part for me was like him kind of shuddering and
yes.
What was all the kind of the weird "I'm an android"? Yes, that sort of thing. It was kind of like very. It was like watching Humans or.
Okay. Well, look.
I just did not agree with the way they portrayed the android.
I think the problem you have with these kind of films is. There are two iconic, massive films which
not at all.
Are awesome.
I'm not necessarily relating. I'm comparing it to other shows that feature androids. And I felt that it was disappointing that he was very much an android rather than an android being human. You know, I felt that he came across.
I think that's because
very irritatingly. You can't keep doing the whole he's damaged thing.
No. You know? I also think it's partly because he was an android that was an earlier model than the Ash android. So it could be that his android was supposed to be a bit more like that, so that it didn't seem too human.
I don't think so.
No,
I just don't think that washes with the history of Aliens. If you think this is between, isn't it?
Yeah, because I suppose when you think about it, there was David, wasn't there, who was right back in Prometheus, and that was before Alien, wasn't it? And he was very humanized. So
I just felt, I mean, although
that's interesting. I hadn't thought like that. I quite enjoyed. I just took it on as like he's slightly malfunctioning and not quite working properly. This young girl hasn't got a load of equipment to, go in and make him the best AI lifelike robot. He's just a slightly malfunctioning robot.
And his malfunction makes him act like a 1950s
I quite enjoyed their little interactions.
Space 1999.
Normally, it's the android looking after the person. This time, the person was kind of looking after the android, and she had an emotional attachment to him because she'd lost a family, she'd lost all her friends. She was hanging on to this malfunctioning bit of equipment.
They could have made more of that in a sense. There didn't seem to be any sacrifice from Andy in the sense that he was kind of operating in a kind of a remote way. I didn't feel like he was connected. There was no emotion from Andy. And I think that would have been an interesting way of connecting them. If he'd been more human, I would have felt more connection, but he was very distant and android-like. And I couldn't see the connection. I didn't feel the connection. It didn't help that Cailee Spaeny, whatever her name is, she just was had no idea what she was getting into, it seemed to me. The role she played was very much what is going on, like distracted. She didn't play a tough character in my mind. I felt that I didn't feel her. I didn't feel she was angry about these miners. Why are they doing this to me?
Yeah, I agree with you on that point.
Wandered around looking about. Yeah. Oh, Andy, I love you, Andy. Yeah, look, there's a bird dying in a cage.
Perhaps she was just so downtrodden You know, if you imagine living in an environment like that, you know,
great. And that's a great character to follow in the main lead of a film, isn't it?
It's not. I agree with you. But then she's tried to do something by going with these guys to try and get these pods so that they can escape to another place. So, I mean, she did try.
Did she look convinced by that? She stood in the back of the cabin saying,
"No, but because she's living a life
here?
of a bit of fear, a little, you know." I know what you're saying. I agree with your point.
They should have kidnapped them and taken them up there against their will. That would have been much more interesting.
Well, I mean, they emotionally kind of blackmailed her anyway, and also she liked the other guy, didn't she? She liked I can't remember what the character's name. I think this was the problem with this.
Tyler.
Can't really remember the characters' names particularly. Tyler, right? She liked Tyler. She was emotionally sort of trying to stay with him. So I think that's, you know, she was emotionally taken with them.
I didn't feel like she was that emotionally attached to Tyler. That came more from the other character, Isabella Merced, the actress. Right. She kind of hinted, didn't she?
She's the sister. She was his sister.
Yeah. She kind of knew, you know. It was just, it was such a shame. You can sense, can't you, that I'm disappointed. And I think
massively. I'm shocked.
I looked at it and I saw all these ingredients, and as the film went on, I saw all the great ingredients, and then it just was so average. On how it delivered, and I just thought this is such a great opportunity.
So to start with, I really hated the way they got the DNA or the alien stuff. I thought that was total crap. You know, going to find the place where it exploded, finding this rock where the alien had somehow got in, you know, sort of, I don't know what the fuck that was all about.
Yeah, very tenuous. Tenuous is a word I would use a lot with all of this.
Total crap. And they could have come up with 100 better ways to do that. And I thought
I could have written 5 in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. That was total crap, you know, and I was disappointed that didn't start off well. But then when they went down and they were following the characters around, the idea of them going up and stealing these pods.
It felt like a Disney movie at that point.
Well, it has been taken over by 20th Century Fox is owned by them now. You know, I thought the production values were really good. You know, I liked the kind of world.
I'm not arguing with the production values. I thought it looked fantastic.
It looked fantastic.
That made me even more.
I'm always drawn to that. I
am as well. I want to. I go to the cinema to be immersed in that environment.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, this wet character, Rain. Sorry for the pun. She was just really.
I didn't think she was that wet. I just think she was she was reluctant. I just didn't. She was like a reluctant hero. She was a reluctant hero, you know.
But you need a character in these situations
people get drawn into something that they can't.
Gruesome.
I mean, you look at Ripley. I know Ripley was an amazing character, okay, but she was reluctant to go. She was She
was swearing at the bloody at the things before she even got down to the aliens. She was fighting people. You know, I didn't want it to be Ripley. I just wanted to see the anxiety and the distress.
Yes.
And the kind of like the determination. But it was just very plain all the way through. And I just thought, what? This girl doesn't even know what aliens is. I mean, did she even know what aliens was before she did the film? I mean, is she even old enough?
Yeah, but if she just reproduced a Ripley performance.
I'm not saying that at all, Greg. I know. No. This is not the thing. This is the thing. I think people will hear this and think, well, you can't have another Ripley. I'll be like, no, I just want someone with a bit of passion. You know, I just want someone who's going to be like.
No, you're right. And now I think about it, and this is why I'm always a person. I watch it the first time, and then when I watch it a second time, a lot more of the stuff I sort of think I then mull that over a lot more. Do you know what I mean? And I feel I could have really done with a set, but I get your point that when she was told, you know, you got to now we're doubling your quota. We didn't, like you say, we didn't get a big reaction, did we?
No, she was like, there was like a, and then we saw like a couple of guys walking by with a bird in a cage, the metaphorical bird in a cage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god. I mean, come on. I mean, she could have been. Maybe she went and if she'd gone cut herself or something like that. That scene in the abyss, it's horrible, you know. But you want to see some kind of like some passion, and I was like, oh my god! And then she's so wet, and Andy's so wet. I mean, I'm surprised she didn't change his bloody nappies, for God's sake. I mean, it was just like, it was so. I just was like so unmotivated. Then Tyler comes in. I think, oh, he's got a bit more action.
Yeah, he's got a bit more about him. I thought he was quite a good leading character. You know,
cocky Byron, who was just being rude. He needed a slap down, didn't he?
Yeah, but
you know,
but no offense, I've known people like that. They just can't help themselves being dicks. You know, and I think
when you're in
you need a bit of that. You need a bit of that. In
I agree with
it,
and I think you need that definitely. But there were definitely points when I felt
like
Tyler should have grabbed him and just slapped him.
Yeah,
you know?
it should have been a bit
grip,
more,
you know, or something like that. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we need him or something like that, and then just tells him, and then it's all a bit like, when there's silence, when someone's being abusive like that, silence, even if it's to the pathetic android, you know, you expect a response, but when it just sits silently and everybody just listens to the bullying, you're like, when Hudson was being an asshole. People were like, shut up, Hudson.
Yeah.
You know, there'd be like a And again, I'm not. And at one point, the character says Hudson line, doesn't he? What are we doing here, man? What are we gonna do? And I'm like.
Yes, there was a few.
That's not what I want.
There are a few bits. No, I know.
They could have done that in a better way.
Okay, this is interesting. I'm liking your take on it. I'm not necessarily agreeing, but I can see your outrage.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to convince anybody I'm not trying to turn anybody's opinion to my opinion. What I'm saying is, I feel like
I think we should all be open and discuss these things, and you know. I can see what you're saying. You know, now that I sit back and think about it, you know, I can see what you're saying. It hadn't offended me that their their attitude.
That's the thing. I kind of wish it had done a bit.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It needed. I think that was a thing. It did need something else within it. Better, like you say, some better characterization. I mean, I said it a minute ago. I completely forgot most of the characters' names. You know, you don't. You know, you remember Hicks, Hudson, you know, all those sorts of characters, Vasquez, you know, they all had really good names that were memorable.
Navarro, who's the Asian lady, I thought she was interesting.
Yeah, she was a better character.
I would wish she was the lead character in this.
That's interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
Because she had a bit of fight about her.
Yeah, she did. She did.
Fuck you. I mean, she was like... She just basically was saying that, and I love that bit where she got the light and she shone it through her body, and you could see the alien pumping against her rib cage. Yeah. I thought that's just badass. I want to see that before I die. You know, she felt like she was a bit more hardcore. I know that they were just thieves and they weren't Marines. But if I was in a situation, I'm not a Marine. But if I was in a situation where I knew that these blooming aliens were around, I'd be cacking my pants. Yeah. You know, I'd be like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
I'd be trying
I did feel there was some of that. I don't think they were just completely...
I think they were just running like
emotions.
rabbits in the headlights most of the time.
Yeah, but that's what it's supposed to be like, isn't it? These things come out of nothing.
Switch on your survival mechanism, wouldn't you?
Well, they did. I mean, the guy was whacking as the face hugger things were jumping.
To do that.
Whacking at them, and he was trying to get away, and... You know, they were all doing. It wasn't like they weren't reacting and weren't.
Well, they had to defend themsells in that situation, didn't they? They had to defend.
Normally,
they were
trapped in a room on their face, but they were like clawing them off, and
that makes sense for me. I mean, that
was good.
I think that was perfectly fine. I thought the face clingers were a little bit different looking, weren't they?
Slightly.
They were kind of darker. Slightly. And then there was the whole scene where they found the xenomorph excretions. In the tunnels, and I was looking at it, and it was not very Geiger-like.
No,
it was kind of scraggly and messy.
That's the point where I really lost it with the film. You know, because to me,
I think me too.
That hallway and that corridor didn't look good. It just looked like a mess on a wall, didn't it?
What was going on with that? What was going on?
I that was for me where it really lost the plot, and I was from that moment on, I was more disappointed with the film. I thought the first bit was quite good. I liked how they got up there, the sort of getting in, doing a few of the things. There was that scene where they try and walk through the face huggers, when they made it warm.
The body temperature.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit
lame.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of all right, but they could have made it more suspenseful. They were just
I think they dragged that bit out too long. I think they could have just done that. Like,
there was something about the shooting of it. It just didn't feel like it was like a documentary, just watching them walk through the room. I didn't feel like the framing or the direction was very.
That doesn't seem to be put together so well, did it?
Super Andy says, "Run," and they run. I mean, how unoriginal is that? Run. Woo! I'm gonna run. Good idea. Where did you come up with that one from? What I was hoping to see was Andy step in, grab one, crush it, throw it, or before the acid gets I thought he was going to be in there doing ninja karate and like defending them off, because he's like this enhanced being now.
He did earlier in the thing.
He grabbed it,
didn't he, and smashed it against the wall.
Yeah. So I just was like, why can't he grabbed the alien just above Tyler's head?
That's right.
And I was like, fantastic. If they're going to make him like a super android who can fight the aliens, I was thinking this is going to be great.
Yeah, but I think what you got to remember is at that point, he's been put in with the information that was from the android that wants to keep the aliens. So
but he doesn't want to keep the aliens. They want the serum.
Yeah.
And they're happy to destroy the aliens, it would seem now, because they've got what they want.
Yeah.
They've created this super serum,
which was basically
that makes you give birth to big bloody aliens.
Well, no, I think that's because
she was pregnant.
I think that's because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, we're jumping about a little bit here, but
we are a little bit.
But obviously, as they're sort of they're going up to try and get these pods, aren't they? And the cryopods haven't got enough fuel, so they then decide, right, we've got to go and find some from another part of the ship. So they go down into like the cryo-freeze area, which use the same sort of fuel pods, I think, and they start taking those out, and I think that's what turns off the cooling system for the alien face huggers. And that's where we have the whole thing kicks off, doesn't it, really? They start to defrost. At the same time, their doors have locked as a precaution for this happening, which would make sense. I mean, that made sense, didn't it? The doors locked because, lights
go off, doors locked.
All that sort of thing. You wouldn't want them getting out. So
no,
they then upgrade Andy, don't they? With there's an android, and that was done, reasonably well. You didn't see the face of the android.
Rook. Who is an Ian Holm model.
Well, I know. I was going to explain that in a minute.
That's spoilers.
Chill.
But
chill.
I
know this one's got you excited, but
well, I mean, it was clear, wasn't it? It was lying on his front. It's clear who it bloody well was.
Well, I mean, that wasn't
a surprise.
No. Once they started to make it like we're going to look at the android and sort of slowly moving up to him, it was very clear. But and obviously they, with the things coming up, defrosting, starting to attack them, Andy then has, like you say, he's been upgraded with the chip from this Rook character. Is that, talk about Rook, obviously we had Bishop, they're pieces of a chessboard.
They are indeed,
So
absolutely.
is that why he's called Rook?
I think so. That would make sense. I do like I like that reference. It's good.
Do you? Oh, right, interesting.
Yeah,
you thought
like
that as well,
reference.
did you?
Yeah.
I thought it was a bit. So, and then they sort of use or set up the android, don't they, Rook, and do all this sort of looking up, and this was one of the worst bits for me. Seeing the Ian Holm as a CGI character, it wasn't particularly well done.
Now, you see, I've heard quite a lot about this before the show. Right. So what I was expecting it to look absolutely terrible.
Right.
But I was pleasantly surprised.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. I honestly was. I honestly thought his head was a slightly different shape, but then I looked at it and I thought, the quality of the CGI seems to be complete. People are complaining about the mouth, and I was like looking at it thinking it looks pretty consistent across it to me, and his head's been smashed on one side.
There were moments when it was a bit better, but then there was moments when it looked weird and
slightly distorted, maybe.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, but I just thought, looking at the state of him, it was kind of almost justified. If it was like a fresh Ian Holm to standing up and walking around, I think, it may have been a bit weird, but because he's on one side of his face, he's covered in blood, their blood, and it's kind of smashed in a bit here. And I thought, potentially that wasn't a big issue for me. Maybe his role in the thing was a slightly more suspicious, giving the other android his new directive. I thought was a bit stupid.
So you're surprising me continually on this, because I thought you were going to come out with, they shouldn't have done that, and that's a terrible going back to because that's how I felt. I felt we're just dredging up bits.
I already said to you, I fully expected there to be references to the old films.
Yeah,
Greg,
I did.
I think the thing is,
I think
with these
taking
films,
a character like that is stupid. I think that.
I do. I think they should have found someone in one of the cryopods and revived them, and that would have been much more interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
So an older person, a scientist who deceives them, and plays that role, the Carter Burke role, or
exactly.
Someone. But that is a classic trope. The enemy within. It's one of the oldest stories in history. Yeah. And to have that.
Yeah, I don't mind it, but it was just so to an audience. Yeah. It's so bloody obvious. If you see that Ash replica robot,
I didn't think they needed to do it. I didn't think they needed to do it.
That's the bad guy. I think, like you say, if they'd had a different character, who seemed like they had a different motive and they wanted to get the fuck out of there, then that would have been much better, wouldn't it? But we knew as soon as we saw that, we thought, all right, well, they're going to get fucked over by this robot, aren't they? This is ridiculous.
It is. It was.
That's why, to me, it didn't work. It's just.
And it was an obvious thing to do. It's very average, nothing ambitious.
No, I agree.
I think I agree with having the Ash character in there, just for 2 minutes, a little nod back. They have to remove a chip. You see him, and that's it.
Yeah,
and that's fine. But I just thought that them having him sitting there, it reminded me a little bit of 1970s Doctor Who, when you have the Dalek leader in his chair.
Oh sitting,
and you get some shots, Darius or something like that.
Yeah,
you have some shots of him at that angle. There were some angled shots of Ash in that position. Is
that what you made you think of? Weird.
It did. It made me think of that character, and I thought, this is almost pantomime, isn't it? The way they're dealing with this. I just thought it was such a shame.
Yeah.
It could have been.
That was a real shame, and I mean, there's a few bits in it that you sort of. There's a bit where the pregnant girl falls down, like. She's not even,
No.
I'm like, how the hell did she survive that?
That clonk.
I know. She there's a few bits like that where I think, Jesus, and could it be that, your survival instinct kicks in? But she would have been severely hurt there. And I want the real, I know it's an alien film and an alien isn't real, but I want a bit of believability about the physics within these things, you
don't want to be ripped out of your immersion by things that you question. You want to be sucked into it. And I think at that point, that there was an interesting thing, and I'll put this to you, Greg, and see what you think, right? Okay, this film wasn't actually an alien film. This film was a Prometheus film.
Yes, I can see what you're saying.
So basically, the focus was more on the black goo.
Yeah.
And the alteration of the human form, rather than the worship of the alien. Yeah. And I feel like in this, we never got to know the aliens.
No.
And I didn't feel like they create the environment of the aliens either. And we're talking about the excretions.
Like we were saying earlier, when we saw that tunnel, when they found where they had, created this tunnel. That didn't seem an alien thing to me.
It was messed up, wasn't it?
It was totally wrong.
The alien heads didn't like slot out of the environments.
No,
they didn't feel part of it. They were just like they were there in an alien environment, but they didn't suit them.
Yeah, it was too perfectly finished where the deck plates were. Do you know what I mean? And it just looked like it was just stuff that's been sprayed on there with a goo
seaweed draped over the banister.
It just didn't look. And
I know
that whole bit where they're in the nest. The bit where that guy gets dragged up and you see down, and there's like 4 or 5 of them crawling up. It just didn't look.
They were too dark.
Like
they weren't glossy, were they? They were just quite matte in a way, and there wasn't the shine, a kind of a bluey grey shine to the alien that you kind of get used to seeing. And I was like, I'm not feeling like these aliens are a character. Like in Aliens, Sigourney's the mother alien. You definitely get a feel of that relationship. In this, I didn't feel like Rain had any kind of relationship. She just kind of looked like a rabbit caught in the headlights. These are aliens, and there was no kind of there's no encounters or anything. And they could have done it. They could have had.
Yeah, I think your point about the Prometheus thing is very valid. Because that was another disappointment for me, because like I say, when we came to that sort of environment where there's all that stuff, and they were then talking about go and get these pods and all that sort of thing, I see some value in the Prometheus and Covenant films. They're okay, but I think you're right. It's like there's a different ethos or mythology around it. Suddenly it's gone from being we're trying to survive against these perfect being aliens and maybe use them to weaponize them, to we're going to change the human. What's the life about? And let's change human beings and that sort of thing. What the fuck? Why are they thinking anything like this? That's mental. They got acid for blood, for fuck's sake.
What is going on?
Why the hell would they ever think that?
And this whole stupid line about, we found loads of worlds and we can't survive in them because I mean, that's just total bullcrap. Anybody that knows anything about astronomy knows that there's billions of planets in the Goldilocks zone around stars in the universe. That we're going to be capable of supporting human life. I mean, it's like that's just the stupid. That just smacked of a director that had no idea about science fiction.
Well, it's because Ridley Scott's involved. He obviously did Covenant. He did Prometheus. He's trying to
Of course,
it's his law, isn't it? That he's trying to re-establish, and
he's tried to put that into this film.
Yeah,
and I think that he failed big time.
Yeah, I mean, when they showed that holographic thing of that shaped vase,
I know,
I'm like, what the hell? I know, I was just like, that's ridiculous, and this whole thing.
I'm surprised they didn't show David at that point. Oh my God, I just thought, please listen.
And then, so when they obviously get the vials, don't they? The gives one to the girls, and she's like, "Don't use it. I don't think it's a good idea to use it." So what does she do? She's scrabbling away. She decides, "I know, I'm pregnant. I'll inject myself with some alien goo that's gonna fuck my body up." What the hell?
I know. I just feel like they could have easily got around the absurdity of that by having one of the vials smash.
Yeah.
And it leaks into her skin.
Yeah, exactly.
You see in the Prometheus films, this stuff is terrible.
Well, I mean, at one point, David, he dips his finger in something, doesn't he? And puts it in someone's drink, doesn't he? So it's something like that, isn't it? But then you can't do that again because that's been done before. But I agree with you. It could have been more of an accident that caused that.
Yeah.
And then
rather than something that doesn't make sense.
And the other massive thing for me that really, really annoys me is how fast these aliens breed and grow. Okay. I mean, literally, she gets the thing in her. She's giving birth to this thing. It's dropped down into a container at the bottom. Suddenly, it's a baby's got out, and suddenly it's 9 foot tall. I mean, literally within 20 seconds. And
I mean, that whole end
that
sequence
was fucking ridiculous.
It was absolutely the end sequence. Listen to us. I mean, it was so bad.
And I hate it when they are always trying to cross aliens and humans.
What is the point? I mean,
and they were trying to make the face on that guy look like one of the creator guys,
one of the engineers
from the engineers, which I thought, oh, for fuck's sake!
And he had the tube wheels on his back like the engineers.
It was so bad, that bit. I was really disappointed when they did that. Those things freak me out as well when they make them all like really sort of gangly and like
the long-limbed kind of
it just freaks the fuck out of me. I don't like them.
It's meant to be freaky. So I mean, I guess it succeeded on that front.
But again, I mean, it's like the aliens were just like they could just change instantly. Like when the first one comes out, I hark back to the original films.
of course.
It takes time. It would take time for any organism.
I completely agree.
To develop from something about this big to something that's 7 foot tall. I mean, it doesn't take 20 minutes, for fuck's sake. Plus, they've had no food. They've had nothing to help them change. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It was completely disappointing. But I think it's so frustrating. This is what I was saying right at the beginning of this review. They had so many good tools to make this work.
Yeah.
But then they just gone and made this pile of crap. I mean, it's really gone downhill with this.
We've ripped it a bit, haven't we?
God. But seriously, now we talk about it, it just highlights how bad some of it was. I will watch this film again, and I will be appalled by this film again. But because I will watch it because it's an alien film, and it's got lots of visual stimulus which are interesting.
I thought up until the bit where they find the corridor with all the gunk in it, I thought up to then it wasn't too bad. There was some good bits in it. There was some interesting approaches to some of the alien
Couldn't
stuff.
stand Cailee Spaeny. I just thought that
she didn't bother me. I know you're bothered a bit about it, but I really didn't. That didn't really bother me. I quite liked the Andy character. I think it was good that they gave him a dual character, and I thought the guy. He did a good job.
The environment was good. The space was good.
Oh yes, exactly. Yeah. I thought
it was all set up nicely. It just needed
exactly. It had a good ingredients, didn't it? It was coming together, but then they just lost the plot. Right at the end, the whole thing. The bit. The only bit I thought was a nice idea, but then again, was the gravity thing with the acid blood and talking about that and don't shoot them.
Yeah.
The acid will just destroy the ship, but they lose the gravity and it swirls about. Now, ultimately, the stuff would probably just swirl about and hit the side of the ship anyway. So it was kind of
It was a nice idea. In reality, completely unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because somehow it starts to swirl nicely, doesn't it?
I know.
That they can go through the middle.
Yeah.
I just thought that is just so. What I was hoping at that point was that it was the gravity was going to go, and it was just going to completely eviscerate Andy and completely kill him. That was what I was hoping for at that particular point, and to see all his like twisted body writhing around with all the. Well, have you seen The Evil Dead? It's just absolutely bloody and disgusting.
Do you know I actually haven't seen that? No.
Oh, but the new one is.
I've heard it's really
the bloodiest film I think I've ever seen. Yeah, it's absolutely grim, and I thought, where's some of that grimness, please? But it's when I heard about this film, I thought, wow, what great combination! Great director who's done some really kind of cutting edge horror.
Yeah,
I thought great setting. I saw some scenes; it looked fantastic, brilliant. There's nothing about the Prometheus connections in the trailers. Have you noticed that?
No,
absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
and if I had seen that, I think everybody would have been like, "Oh, And then there's nothing to imply that Andy is a character in this much in the trailers either.
Don't you think?
I didn't feel that. There may be a couple of bits, but you don't get the sense.
I thought he was a different character. There's a few bits where he's sort of got run, and doing these sorts of things. It made him look like he was more of a leading character. But that's what trailers are about, isn't it? They mislead you a bit.
This didn't have a leading character. This film, there's no lead role.
No.
I can't say that Cailee Spaeny was a lead role in this. I don't think she ever wanted to embrace that. She just kept sitting back.
I don't know.
It felt weird to me.
I think the thing is, the actors don't get to make all the decisions, do they? They're being directed. They're being told how to do these things.
Yeah, I definitely think the direction has got an issue with this.
You know what I mean? So I thought she did an all right job. I wasn't blown away. It wasn't like seeing a Ripley character, was it? Definitely not.
Just very average.
It wasn't like seeing the characters like when we reviewed Alien. All those characters were very real. They all had their problems. They all discussed.
You felt like they lived there. You felt like that was their world.
Yeah. They tried a bit with it, but it to give like the guy who was always angry at Andy. His backstory was that his mother had died in a mine when a simulant had closed up the mine to protect other, majority rather than a couple. So we tried a few bits, but it's very
largely fell short.
Yeah, and I always feel, how can they progress something like this? It can't always be the same, can it?
I tell you, there's one where they could have done this. There's one where they could have looked at this and they could have said, like before, we were talking about this in the last preview in a review with Aliens. They could have looked at it like a work of art. Okay, so you have to take the artistry of something like this and you have to look at the alien as a beautiful thing, as a beautiful, terrifying creature, and you need to try and you say to the viewer, experience this, take this, look at this creature.
Yeah.
And then you get a sense of awe, like you get the awe of the alien, the deadliest killing machine. I think it's just like, I just think, I'll go back to this point. I think it's a very, there's a very teeny boppy, trying to tick all the boxes type.
I just think that's just the world we're living in. I think
I don't know. You look at Dune. I thought that was a fantastic experimental film. Looking at Dune's a fantastic film. It will forever be viewed as an art. It's got artistic elements to it. They play with the lighting, they play with the sound, there's lots of things like that which are,
to be honest, I was quite bored in some of Dune, if I'm honest with you.
Did you see you saw it at the cinema, didn't you?
I didn't actually. I think that's probably why.
Well, you have to see that film at the cinema.
Probably why.
Because it's an amazing experience at the cinema. And I'm glad I saw this at the cinema, because if I'd seen it just on the TV, I'd be even more scathing of it, to be honest. Which is difficult to say. I didn't actually... Go on.
All I was going to say was the bits that really annoyed me as well were putting in some of the lines and some of the things from the original films. The bit where Andy falls down, he kills an alien, doesn't he? Shoots it, and then he's like, "Get away from her, you bitch!" And I was like,
"That's terrible acting."
What the hell? Well, no, I think they were trying to do it in a different way.
He was trying to be funny.
And for me, it's like, what? Don't take these best lines. Why do we need to keep doing that? There's too much nostalgia.
I don't have a problem with that. I think nostalgia is a massive currency.
For me, it's what's ruining these films, because it makes me think they're trying to think consciously here. How can we make this like the original Aliens? They need to make this something that it's.
They should have made it more like the original Alien.
No.
They needed to grab. I'm not talking about the story, the plot. I'm talking about the artistry of it. I
understand that. That's different. But they still need to make it its own film in its own right. Yeah. Otherwise you're just watching the same thing again and again, and that gets boring. There's got to be a way of developing this thing, and I think what they've tried to do is to turn it into the Prometheus. It's about evolving and all that sort of stuff. Where we come from. How can we make
that little
the
scene where they showed the rat being killed?
Yeah.
Are they saying that this stuff brings things back from the dead?
Well, they showed that the rat died and they'd injected it, and then it came back somehow.
But I didn't know that it brought things back from the dead. I thought that it was meant to enhance this stuff.
It wasn't very clear, was it?
No,
I thought, from what I remember seeing that bit, I thought the rat had been killed or been squashed, and suddenly they'd injected it with this stuff, and it kind of reformed. And I thought, well, that is not even part of the alien. You know, that's not even. It doesn't regenerate when you shoot it and kill it. It doesn't regenerate. I thought, that's weird. Why have they done that? You know.
Yeah.
It would have been better if they'd shown it as, you know, a sickly alien turning into something a bit more, but not like, oh, you squashed it and it's healed.
Silly little
It's
animation.
not like the Wolverine, for God's sake. It don't really heal, you know. So I thought that was very weird. And then you saw a little bit of the video later on where it suddenly became a big, you know. I hate all that stuff. I think
Which she didn't do, incidentally. She didn't do. I know she was pregnant, but she didn't change.
No, it focused it all into the thing, didn't it?
But you know, it's going through her body. You'd think that they would change her.
It's just totally inconsistent.
There's no mention in the rat scene about the rat giving birth to an alien. I know it's not pregnant, but there's no kind of relationship to the alien being born. Or
I'm just thinking.
I know. I just
because she happened to be pregnant. I think it's somehow that's gone to that, changed that.
Yeah,
and that was just the worst bit for me. I fucking hated all that stuff with the big tall gangly alien. That was crap.
Yeah.
You know, the bit at the end where she's doing a log signing off. You know, and like, what the hell? Don't take these. Don't do. Why would she even do that? She's not a Navy officer. She wouldn't know to do that. No, you know, she wouldn't be thinking that.
No,
I just think. Totally out of character, you know. That is just clearly you're using.
Oh, alien. She had a character.
Sign off. Yeah, well.
I know. Yeah, it was. I know. I'm so disappointed. I didn't think I'd come on here today and slag it off like this, but I just
enjoyed it as well, haven't you?
It's been cathartic. It's been very cathartic. I have to, you know, This is. I think people who are watching this, you just got to know that I'm a massive Aliens fan. I was hoping the best for this.
Yeah.
I was hoping that this would be something that I could go back to time and time again and enjoy another episode of Aliens rather than Prometheus.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be that, but no. They've also, if you think about it, they've destroyed the timeline as well. Yeah. Because they find this abandoned space station with all the aliens research. It's meant to be before Aliens.
Yes.
So
exactly.
Burke, who's like an alien species. What are you talking about in Aliens?
Yeah.
You know, he's like doesn't have a clue. He would know about their research facility that was destroyed 20 years beforehand.
Yeah.
You know.
I know, that's the danger of doing these things. You know, it's like a Star Wars thing, isn't it? They ruin things in Star Wars. You know.
Well, I think you can do an isolated little encounter that no one would ever find out about.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they're trying to suggest by this thing getting destroyed. But you're right, there would have been some, you know,
they would have known about this big research facility, wouldn't they? You know, with all these aliens in it.
They would have when they first set up the colony on LB4, whatever it is. There would have been more about, actually, this is a research place, not a colony place, you know, because they would have known about it, wouldn't they?
They would have known about the aliens.
Yeah.
And,
do you know what I mean?
You know.
So, it's a great shame. It's a great shame because it could have been, like you say, could have been really good. But I'm just concerned with cinema at the moment. There's too much trying to just take good bits from old stuff, rehash it, sell it and advertise it to death, you know, to get a big crowd in, you know, and it's only films that are trying to be something of their own, and not trying to have an agenda, not trying to do these things that are of any good quality these days.
I think it depends what you're going into the film for. If you're going to go, if you're going in to watch Axel F. And Beverly Hills Cop, the most recent one, you're going to have a whole bunch of nostalgia, aren't you?
And I agree, and that is a much more nostalgia-based thing, and I can accept that more, you know. But this is like a franchise that they've been building for years, you know.
This is like a serious science fiction.
Exactly. Axel F is a comedy.
It is.
The idea
and that's
is
the
it's
one
about,
that springs to mind.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, think about things like The Expendables and all those films. They're it's an industry of nostalgia, you know, and I think. Yeah.
But that's what we've become, isn't it? That's what the world is kind of becoming. It's just like,
to a certain extent. I do think there's
just
still great films out there.
Back and try and there are. I'm sure there are.
There are great films. We just have
big blockbusters. They seem to be coming down to this sort of process of let's try and find what was really good before and flog that and ruin that and I get a bit tired of that sort of thing, you know. So that was a great shame that they kept putting in bits of lines and bits of things in
I think it could have worked. It could have worked if they'd done it properly, but it was just terribly wrenched in.
Yeah,
you know. I just thought
exactly.
No, it's
badly done. Yeah,
it wasn't very well done at all, and it didn't help that they're not very good actors to do it. So you know, I have big hopes.
I think I'm going to not be quite so harsh. The Cailee Spaeny, she was okay. I wasn't too fussed. I thought the Andy guy was quite good, you know. But again, I think a lot of these things. I think a lot of these come down to direction and story and what they've been told to do. You know, I'm not always.
Eileen Wu was fantastic as Navarro, and she had the same director. Yeah, you know, and I thought that Archie Reno was.
Her character was more of a character that you liked.
Yeah, but you can bring in your own acting ability.
Yes, I understand that. I do.
And be a powerful character.
I do. But
clearly,
they could do 10 takes, right? There could be other takes on the cutting room floor where they've done
You're being too kind, Greg.
I'm probably being too kind.
Yeah, but, I think that she had a big responsibility, a lead actor in an Aliens movie, and she just didn't deliver.
I think you're a bit harsh. I think watch it again, and we'll have another talk.
Watch it again, except the ending.
Except the ending, yeah. When they
turn it off 10 minutes before it ends. How often do you say that about a film? That's bad, isn't it?
Oh, I know.
Oh my God.
That was a shame. It was a shame. Anyway, thanks very much for watching with us today. You know, if you like what we're saying, subscribe and like the videos. Add your comments. You know, what do you feel? Did you enjoy it? Clearly, we were disappointed. But let us know your thoughts. It's always good to see the comments coming in. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.